So the women and children came loudly, all led by a white-haired old man, wearing upon his chest a disk of polished copper, signifying that he was the werewolves. Never before had Pentaquad seen a tribe so poorly led, so pathetically disciplined, for his tribe always walked very quietly. Nor had he ever seen people so small. "They're all children," he whispered. "They can't be grown people." But they were, and this discovery determined what he would do. But even as he reached this decision, he was alarmed at its daring. When the tribe who was frolicking was almost upon him, he leaped boldly into the path, holding up his right hand. The old werewolves, the old chief, stopped as commanded, and those behind kept coming on. Some children screamed, and the warriors knew not what to do. In the confusion, Pentaquad cried in a loud voice, "I am Pentaquad, the Susquehannock." The werewolves did not hear well, and the little that did come through he did not comprehend or understand. Turning to those people behind, he asked what the frightening stranger had said. But they had not understood either. "Where's Scorchin?" the werewolves pleaded. And when that emaciated, skinny warrior was located, his chin cleft years before by the tomahawk of a Susquehannock, he was pushed forward to ask in the tongue Pentaquad had used. Are you Susquehannock?" Pentaquad nodded, and the interpreter reported this information, to the werewolves, the leader, who said, "Ask if he means war." "Do you come seeking war?" "No." Oh, an audible sigh of relief, a loud sigh of relief, came from the entire band. But then the leader, the werewolves, frowned and said, "Tell him we have nothing to trade." And when this was interpreted, Pentaquad said, "I too have nothing." Again there came the sigh of relief, after which the werewolves asked in some confusion and perplexity, "Then why is he here?" And when this was spoken in Susquehannock, Pentaquad replied simply, "I am a fugitive. I'm running away. I've come seeking refuge and protection." When this startling information was circulated, the little people uttered whispers of compassion and said that perhaps he might wish to stay with them, for they needed men, and he was taller and stronger and greater than any they had known. They jabbered that once or twice in each generation, gangs of Susquehannocks, tall like him, had strayed onto this river, always to plunder, or take slaves. Scorchin had been captured on such a raid and had lived among the warlike northerners for 7 years, an adventure of which he never stopped talking about. And now he was assigned to walk with the newcomer as the tribe returned to their riverside home for the winter. "Yes, it's ours," he said. "We call it Patamoke. I'm sure the name has a meaning, but I forget what it is. Yes, we leave it every summer to live in the woods close to the great water. The great water is over there, Pentecoid corrected, pointing to the bay. There is a greater over there, Scar-Chin explained, pointing east. Such information Pentecoid did not believe, but he thought it best not to argue with this excitable little man. Pentecoid led them to the rude wigwam, the simple wigwam he had constructed, and the children in the party ran to it, using it as part of a game, laughing at the inept way the sides fitted against the roof. Some of the women gathered about the sleeping place too, ridiculing its unfamiliar patterns, unaware of the rudeness in such behavior. And when Pentecoid moved to protect his few belongings from the children, the women stayed with him and called to the boys and girls to leave the strangers' things alone. Then they smiled at the tall man, their eyes sparkling. The returning villagers had lingered only briefly, for the werewolves now spoke to them in a soft tone, whereupon the character of the motley crowd changed abruptly, and they scurried back to their homes. The warriors went into the woods and began cutting trees, while the women and children attended to the smoothing out of the stone platforms on which the lodgings for winter would be built. When these things were done, the entire tribe moved to the shore and began picking the grasses from which the sides of the wigwams would be woven. Pentecoid was impressed with the orderly way in which the tribe worked. They appeared to be much better builders than the Susquehannocks. When the preliminary tasks were finished, the materials laid in strategic spots so that the building could progress on the following day, on the morrow, they rested. And Pentecoid had a chance to talk in more detail with Scar-Chin, who told him of his long captivity among the Susquehannocks, and how much Scarface had admired that warrior tribe, and how the Susquehannock women had made fun of him for being so small and skinny. "What is your tribe called?" Pentecoid asked. "We are one small part of the Nanticokes. The great werewolves live to the south. We have only a lesser werewolf, as you've seen." "Have you a name?" Scar-Chin shrugged his shoulders, as if the mystery of names was reserved for shamans or those who cast medicine. Holy men. He did, however, venture and share the information that frequently the powerful Nanticokes to the south invaded the village to steal whatever the local people had acquired. "Are they so much braver?" "No, more of them." "Do you fight back in battle?" Scar-Chin just laughed. "We are not Susquehannocks. When the Nanticokes come, we run into the woods. We leave enough behind so they won't want to pursue us. And when they've taken what they want, they leave, and then we come back." Now, such behavior was so extraordinary that Pentecoid could think of no sensible comment. He sat tapping his fingers together, and as he did so, he spied the pile of white shells. "Don't you use them against the Nanticokes?" "Use what?" Those shells." "Those?" Scar-Chin stared at the shells, and then he broke into laughter, and he summoned a group of tribesmen and shared the hilarious joke with them. He thinks we throw them at the Nanticokes. And all his listeners began to laugh, and some of the children started skimming the white shells into the river. Pentaquad, taking no offense, asked, "What are they?" "You don't know?" Scarchin asked in amazement. From one of the teasing children he took a shell, held it at chest level, and imitated a man eating from it, whereupon one of the women ran to the shore, dived in the cold water, and within a few moments reappeared, holding in her hand a dripping object constructed of the two shells bound together. Running to Pentaquad, her hair dripping around her shoulders, she extended her two hands, presenting him with the river-borne object. He took it and was impressed by its roughness and heaviness. "What is it?" he asked Scarchin. "He doesn't know what it is," the interpreter shouted, pleased with his newfound importance as the only one in town who could speak with the Susquehannock. "He doesn't know what it is," the children echoed gleefully, and everyone watched as the tall man from the north wrestled with the connected shells. Finally, the young woman who had brought him the present took it back, reached for a sharp-pointed stick, and deftly, with skill, split open the shell. One half she threw away. The other half she handed gravely and seriously to Pentaquad, indicating that he should eat. Trained on venison and rabbit and fish, he looked at the strange object in his hand. In no way could he relate it to food such as he had known. It was watery and slippery and had no bones. There was no sensible way to attack it. The girl solved his problem. Taking the laden shell from his nervous hand, she lifted it to his lips and told him to open his mouth, and with a delicate twist of her fingers popped the food in. For an instant he was aware of a fine, salty taste and a pleasing sensation. Then the food, whatever 'twas, disappeared, leaving on his face a most bewildered, puzzled look. With an easy throwing motion, the girl tossed the empty shell onto the mound. "We call them kashek," Scarchin explained. "More sleeping in the river than you could count. All winter we feed on kashek." Pentaquad contemplated and thought about this. In addition to the abundance of food he had discovered by himself, there was this additional supply hidden in the river. It was inconceivable, and he sat confused, perplexed, puzzled, trying to unravel the mystery of oysters. And he thought of his friend fishing Longlegs, and he queried Scarchin, "What is it he catches on the bottom, cuts in two, and swallows with such difficulty?" "Fish." "I know fish. This is no fish, shaped like a hand with many legs." As soon as Pentaquad uttered these words, a smile, a benign smile and friendly smile, spread over the scarred face of his interpreter, who said nothing. Obviously, he was recalling moments of past happiness, after which he summoned the girl who had caught the oysters. "He doesn't know crabs either," he whispered. And the girl smiled, and with her right hand gave an imitation of a crab, wriggling its many feet. And then a look of compassion filled her eyes. To be ignorant and unknowing of the oyster was amusing, but to be unacquainted with the crab was pathetic.